Deep in the monastery libraries of Sri Lanka, monks guard palm leaf manuscripts most Buddhists have never seen. These ancient texts, written in precise Pali script, contain something extraordinary. Picture this: while the world knows one Buddha, these canonical sources document an entire lineage of 28 awakened beings, stretching across cosmic time periods so vast they make human civilization look like a single breath. The first Buddha, Dipankara, who lived 4 incalculable eons ago and made a prophecy that would echo through cosmic time. The 28th, Siddhartha Gautama, which means the story isn't over. These aren't mythological tales. This is the Buddhavamsa, part of the official Pali canon, preserved by scholars for over 2,000 years, containing patterns that reveal something profound about how enlightenment actually works across cosmic cycles. Some of these Buddhas lived for 100,000 years, others appeared for mere decades. Each manifested exactly when humanity needed their specific form of awakening. And the pattern of their appearances, their lifespans, their teaching methods, creates a cosmic algorithm that explains why Buddhas emerge when they do. The most remarkable part, ancient chroniclers didn't just record these 28 Buddhas randomly. They documented a systematic decline that reveals how consciousness itself evolves, how dharma adapts to different cosmic conditions, and why our current spiritual era required the most revolutionary Buddha of all. That manuscript I just mentioned sits within the Tipitaka, the 3 baskets of Buddhist teachings, specifically in a collection called the Khuddaka Nikaya. But there's one text that even dedicated practitioners often overlook. It's the Buddhavamsa, literally meaning the Chronicle of Buddhas. Unlike the better-known suttas focusing on Gautama's teachings, this text reads like a cosmic historical record spanning eons of time. Let me clarify what we're exploring today. This isn't archaeological documentation, claiming physical evidence for 28 historical figures. We're examining how ancient Buddhist scholars understood enlightenment as a cosmic phenomenon, operating according to patterns that transcend individual lifetimes. The Buddhavamsa presents something remarkable, a systematic chronicle of 28 Buddhas, each with specific characteristics, lifespans, and roles across what Buddhist cosmology calls kalpas, cosmic time periods lasting millions of years. Now, we won't go through all 28 names today. That would be a documentary series in itself. Instead, we'll focus on the key figures who reveal the cosmic pattern: Dipankara, who started it all; Kassapa, who bridged the gap; Gautama, who revolutionized everything; and Maitreya, who's yet to come. But this isn't merely a list of names and dates. These texts reveal a pattern, a cosmic rhythm showing how enlightenment manifests differently across various eras. The declining lifespans tell the story, from Dipankara's 100,000 years to Gautama's 80 years. This isn't spiritual decay, it's dharma adaptation, enlightenment learning to function under increasingly challenging conditions. What makes this timeline particularly fascinating for modern practitioners is that Gautama, the Buddha we know, appears as number 28 during what these texts call the Age of Conflict, a period characterized by shortened lifespans, dense consciousness, and the need for entirely new approaches to awakening. Today, we'll walk through this ancient timeline, meet the Buddhas who preceded Siddhartha, understand why each era required different awakening technologies, and discover what this cosmic pattern reveals about our current moment in spiritual evolution. Because if these canonical sources are accurate about enlightenment operating on cosmic scales, then understanding where we are in this cycle becomes crucial for anyone serious about spiritual development. Our journey begins with Dipankara Buddha, whose name literally translates as the lamplighter, and whose encounter with the future Buddha contains one of the most extraordinary prophecies in Buddhist literature. The Buddhavamsa tells us Dipankara appeared 4 Asankhya kalpas ago. That's 4 incalculable cosmic periods in Buddhist cosmology. A kalpa, sometimes translated as eon in English, is an inconceivably long time frame, often described as millions of years, used to measure cosmic cycles. This time frame is so vast our minds struggle to process it. Yet the text records his story with remarkable precision in verses 255 to 78. But Dipankara's significance isn't his own enlightenment. It's a moment that would connect all future Buddhas across cosmic time. The text describes a young ascetic named Sumedha, who would later become known as the Bodhisattva, encountering this radiant awakened being. Ancient sources describe the scene in vivid detail. Sumedha sees Dipankara approaching across muddy ground. In a spontaneous act of devotion, he spreads his long hair across the path so the Buddha can walk without soiling his feet. In that moment of pure offering, something cosmic occurs. Dipankara Buddha stops, looks directly into Sumedha's eyes, and speaks what the Pali texts record as one of history's most precise predictions. In future time, you will become a Buddha. But the prophecy continues with details that would prove accurate across 4 incalculable eons. You will be born in the Shakya clan, your father named Suddhodana, your mother Maya, and under a Bodhi tree you will achieve supreme enlightenment as Gautama Buddha. Just imagine, this prediction was made when our universe was incomprehensibly younger, yet every detail would manifest exactly as foretold millions of lifetimes later. What's striking about Dipankara isn't just the prophecy, it's what his existence reveals about Buddhist cosmology. The text states he lived for 100,000 years, teaching countless beings across multiple world systems during what scholars call a golden age of consciousness. These numbers aren't meant as literal historical facts in our modern sense. They represent something deeper. The Buddhist understanding that enlightenment operates on cosmic scales, where individual lifetimes are moments in an infinite dance of consciousness evolution. Dipankara's era, described in the Buddhavamsa, was characterized by extraordinary spiritual receptivity. Human beings lived for vast periods. Consciousness was naturally refined. A single Buddha could sustain direct dharma transmission for millennia because beings possessed the spiritual capacity to receive and maintain awakened understanding. This raises a compelling question that drives the entire 28 Buddha timeline. If Dipankara could live and teach for 100,000 years during a golden age, why do later Buddhas have progressively shorter lifespans? And what does this systematic decline reveal about the nature of consciousness itself? The answer lies in understanding what the texts call the gradual densification of cosmic consciousness across time cycles. Each era becomes spiritually heavier, requiring Buddhas to manifest in forms precisely calibrated to their period's spiritual capacity. Dipankara wasn't just the first Buddha in this cosmic sequence. He was the lamplighter who illuminated a path spanning incalculable eons, his prophecy creating an unbroken thread, connecting all future awakened beings, including the prince who would sit in meditation under a tree in ancient India. But the most profound implication of Dipankara's story emerges when we consider its meaning for consciousness itself. If this Buddha could perceive across 4 incalculable eons to predict Gautama's exact circumstances, what does that suggest about the nature of time, awareness, and the fundamental interconnectedness of all awakened beings? The Buddhavamsa presents Dipankara not as ancient history, but as living proof that enlightenment transcends temporal limitations, that cosmic consciousness operates according to patterns we're only beginning to understand, and that every moment of awakening participates in a cosmic process far vaster than individual spiritual achievement. Now that we've encountered Dipankara, let's examine the extraordinary pattern hidden within the complete 28 Buddha timeline. Because what emerges isn't random. It's a cosmic blueprint revealing how enlightenment adapts across vast time cycles. The Buddhavamsa doesn't simply list these Buddhas chronologically. It presents a systematic progression that offers profound insights about consciousness evolution and spiritual accessibility across cosmic ages. Look at these specific examples from the complete lineage. Dipankara lived 100,000 years. Kondanya Buddha lived 90,000 years. Mangala lived 80,000 years. Sumangala lived 70,000 years. Then we see Vipassana, Sikhin, and Vesabu during the transition period. This descending pattern continues through all 28 Buddhas until we reach Gautama at just 80 years. But notice something remarkable about the gaps between appearances. Between Buddhas 1 to 15, the intervals span millions of years during spiritually rich periods. Then, between Buddhas 25 to 28, they appear in relatively quick succession during what the texts call the Age of Decline. This isn't evidence of spiritual decay, it's something far more sophisticated, what we might call the dharma adaptation principle. As cosmic time progresses through what Buddhists term kalpas, consciousness becomes denser, more complex, requiring Buddhas to manifest in forms that match each era's spiritual receptivity. Picture it like this. During Dipankara's golden age, consciousness was naturally refined. Beings could absorb and maintain enlightened teachings for millennia. Direct transmission from teacher to student happened effortlessly. Awakening was, relatively speaking, straightforward. But as we move through cosmic cycles, the spiritual atmosphere becomes what these texts describe as increasingly thick, more challenging to penetrate. This creates periods scholars call Buddha-less eras, times when conditions are so spiritually dense that no Buddha manifests. So what happened after Dipankara's golden age began fading? The pattern becomes even more intriguing when we examine specific examples. Vipassana Buddha, the 20th in the sequence, lived for 80,000 years during a transitional period. Sikhin Buddha lived 70,000 years. Vesabu lived 60,000 years, each calibrating their manifestation to match their era's spiritual density. Then something dramatic happens. Kakusanda Buddha, number 25, lived only 40,000 years. Konagamana lived 30,000 years. Kassapa lived 20,000 years. The accelerating decline reflects consciousness reaching critical density, requiring more frequent Buddha appearances but shorter individual lifespans. Ancient sources describe this progression using the metaphor of light, penetrating increasingly dense material. Early Buddhas were like sunlight shining through clear crystal. Later Buddhas had to function like laser beams, concentrated, focused, designed to cut through spiritual opacity. But Gautama's position reveals the pattern's most remarkable aspect. He appeared during what Buddhist cosmology calls the Kali Yuga equivalent, a period when human lifespans had shortened dramatically, when spiritual intuition was naturally clouded, when traditional enlightenment methods were no longer sufficient for most beings. Yet paradoxically, Gautama's teachings became more accessible than those of his predecessors. Why? Because his dharma was specifically engineered for dense spiritual conditions. The Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, systematic meditation instructions. These weren't available during golden ages because they weren't necessary. Earlier Buddhas could point directly to enlightenment and beings would awaken instantly. But Gautama had to develop step-by-step methodologies, detailed consciousness maps, practical techniques that could function when spiritual transmission became difficult. This cosmic perspective illuminates why Buddhist practice feels both ancient and urgently contemporary. The methods we use today carry accumulated wisdom from 27 previous Buddhas, yet were specifically calibrated for the challenging spiritual density we still experience. The Buddhavamsa suggests this pattern operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Just as cosmic consciousness evolves through vast time cycles, individual spiritual development follows similar rhythms, periods of easy progress alternating with challenging phases, each requiring different approaches and techniques. Understanding this timeline transforms how we approach daily practice. We're not trying to recreate Dipankara's Golden Age methods. We're working with Gautama's revolutionary technologies, specifically designed for beings struggling with the consciousness challenges that still define our current cosmic moment. To understand Gautama's revolution, we need to meet the Buddha who came just before. Of all 28 Buddhas in this cosmic lineage, none plays a more crucial role in understanding our current spiritual era than Kassapa Buddha, the 27th in the sequence, and Gautama's immediate predecessor. The Buddhavamsa records that Kassapa Buddha lived for 20,000 years, teaching during an era that was already showing clear signs of spiritual decline, yet still far more conducive to enlightenment than our current age. But Kassapa's significance extends far beyond his individual awakening. What makes Kassapa extraordinary is how his teachings and legacy created the precise conditions necessary for Buddhism as we know it to emerge. Ancient sources describe his era as a critical transition period, when Golden Age methods were becoming less effective, when consciousness was becoming denser, when beings required more structured approaches to awakening. Kassapa responded by developing what scholars term preparatory dharma, teachings that didn't offer immediate enlightenment, but established the spiritual infrastructure for future awakening. The emphasis on monastic communities, systematic meditation training, detailed ethical guidelines. These foundational practices we associate with Buddhism today weren't innovations by Gautama. They were refinements of methods first developed by Kassapa. Archaeological evidence supports this tradition in fascinating ways. Sites in Sri Lanka, particularly around Mihintale and Anuradhapura, contain inscriptions predating known Buddhist history. Cave complexes attributed to the Buddha who came before suggest that memory of a previous Buddha tradition persisted in these regions, creating exactly the spiritual substrate that would prove receptive to Gautama's later teachings. The Buddhavamsa, Sri Lanka's ancient chronicle, contains intriguing references to Kassapa's disciples, maintaining meditation practices in remote mountain locations for generations after their teacher's passing. While we can't verify these as historical documentation, they indicate how preparatory Dharma traditions bridged the gap between cosmic Buddha appearances. But Kassapa's most revolutionary insight wasn't his direct teaching methods. It was his understanding of spiritual timing. The texts suggest he foresaw the coming challenges, recognizing that the next Buddha would need to work with beings whose consciousness was far denser, whose lifespans were dramatically shorter, whose capacity for direct spiritual transmission was severely limited. So Kassapa's strategy became unprecedented. Instead of relying purely on direct pointing to enlightenment, he created graduated paths, step-by-step methodologies, training systems that could function even when teacher-student transmission became difficult. The Buddhavamsa records Kassapa's final prediction with remarkable precision. When conditions ripen, when humanity has forgotten enough to be truly ready to learn, when spiritual pride has been humbled by spiritual necessity, then the next Buddha will appear with Dharma technologies appropriate for the age of conflict. This creates profound insight into why Gautama's enlightenment was so revolutionary. He wasn't simply another Buddha appearing in a spiritually rich environment. He was the first Buddha to achieve awakening during what we might call hard mode, When consciousness itself had become challenging to penetrate, the gap between Kassapa's death and Gautama's birth wasn't merely a cosmic intermission. It was a deliberately planned incubation period, allowing preparatory teachings to dissolve just enough that fresh approaches could emerge, while maintaining sufficient spiritual substrate for breakthrough to remain possible. Different Buddhist traditions preserve varying accounts of this transition period. Theravada sources suggest scattered communities maintained meditation practices derived from Kassapa's lineage. Mahayana texts describe bodhisattvas appearing periodically to sustain spiritual momentum. These varying interpretations reflect different understandings of how Dharma continuity functions across Buddhaless eras. What emerges clearly from canonical sources is Kassapa's role as the bridge Buddha, connecting Golden Age methods of the first 26 Buddhas with the revolutionary necessity that would drive Gautama's approach. He understood that each Buddha must plant seeds that will flower in the next Buddha's era. This cosmic perspective illuminates why Kassapa is sometimes called the preparatory teacher. His legacy wasn't his direct dharma, but his recognition that spiritual evolution requires patient groundwork, systematic preparation, building consciousness infrastructure that future awakening can utilize. For contemporary practitioners, understanding Kassapa's bridging function helps explain why Gautama's methods feel both timelessly ancient and urgently practical. They're built on foundations laid by 27 previous Buddhas, yet specifically engineered for spiritual challenges we still face today. Just as Kassapa prepared ground for Gautama's revolution, our current practice participates in preparing consciousness substrate for whatever evolutionary leaps await future eras. But what made Gautama so different from all his predecessors? Now we arrive at the Buddha most familiar to us, Siddhartha Gautama, but understanding him as the 28th in this cosmic lineage completely transforms our appreciation of his significance and why his approach to enlightenment was so radically different from all predecessors. The Buddhavamsa positions Gautama's appearance during what Buddhist cosmology terms the Kali Yuga, the age of conflict, when human lifespans had declined to around 100 years, when spiritual receptivity had reached its lowest point in cosmic cycles, when traditional enlightenment methods were no longer sufficient for most beings. This wasn't cosmic accident, it was spiritual necessity. Gautama didn't achieve enlightenment despite these challenging conditions. He achieved it precisely because these conditions demanded completely revolutionary approaches to awakening. Consider what this means. The previous 27 Buddhas taught during eras when consciousness was naturally more refined, when beings could achieve awakening through simpler methods, when direct transmission from teacher to student happened almost effortlessly. But Gautama faced unprecedented challenges. He had to develop methodologies that could work when consciousness was dense, when beings were caught in complex mental formations, when direct pointing to enlightenment was insufficient for most practitioners. This is why his innovations were so extraordinary. The Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, systematic analysis of suffering and its causes, detailed meditation instructions, comprehensive ethical frameworks. These weren't just spiritual insights. They were precision-engineered technologies for breakthrough under difficult conditions. In the Majjhima Nikaya, Gautama reflects on the difficulty of teaching in a world where minds are clouded and lifespans are short. While he doesn't compare his dharma to that of past Buddhas directly, the tradition tells us that each awakened one adapts the truth for the age they appear in. And Gautama's path was forged for a darker time. His 6-year spiritual quest before enlightenment wasn't just personal searching, it was cosmic research and development, studying residual teachings from previous Buddha traditions, learning from ascetic methods that preserved fragments of ancient techniques but finding them inadequate for his era's spiritual requirements. The breakthrough under the Bodhi tree wasn't merely individual awakening. it was the discovery of how enlightenment could manifest during the age of decline, how timeless wisdom could be translated into methods accessible to beings with limited spiritual capacity. But Gautama's position in the cosmic sequence reveals something even more remarkable. He didn't simply adapt previous Buddha teachings. He created entirely new dharma technologies, meditation techniques that could work systematically, ethical frameworks that could transform gradually, community structures that could preserve teachings across generations. As we explored in detail in our Siddhartha video, his journey from prince to awakened teacher wasn't just personal transformation, it was cosmic innovation. The universe requiring new forms of enlightenment expression suitable for challenging times. Gautama's frequent references to previous Buddhas and recorded teachings reveal his deep awareness of this lineage. The Digha Nikaya contains multiple instances where he acknowledges Buddhas of the past, speaks of the Dharma wheel being turned multiple times throughout cosmic history, and positions his own teaching as both continuation and revolution. But perhaps most significantly, Gautama's era marks a turning point in the cosmic pattern. While previous Buddhas appeared primarily for their immediate time periods, Gautama's methods were designed to function across multiple future generations. This is why Buddhism has survived and adapted across 2,500 years. Earlier Buddha teachings were perfect for their Golden Age contexts, but didn't need to persist. Gautama created Dharma technologies robust enough to function through continued spiritual decline. Different Buddhist schools interpret this cosmic positioning in varying ways. Theravada emphasizes Gautama as the perfect teacher for our current kalpa. Mahayana sees him as one manifestation of eternal Buddha nature. Vajrayana understands him as the Sambhogakaya expression appropriate for our era's consciousness level. Yet all traditions agree on the essential point. Gautama represents the culmination of 27 previous Buddha experiments, each contributing insights that reach their fullest expression in his systematic approach to enlightenment under challenging conditions. Understanding Gautama as the 28th Buddha illuminates both the depth of his wisdom, drawing from vast cosmic teaching experience, and the practical urgency of his methods, designed for beings struggling with consciousness density that still defines our current moment. This cosmic perspective transforms how we approach Buddhist practice. We're not following ancient techniques that happen to survive. We're engaging with specifically calibrated methodologies designed for exactly the kind of spiritual challenges we continue to face today. The 28th Buddha position suggests that our current practice participates in something far larger than individual awakening. We're working with the culmination of cosmic consciousness evolution, using tools refined across incalculable eons. So what comes after the 28th Buddha? But the cosmic timeline doesn't conclude with Gautama. The same canonical texts that chronicle the previous 28 Buddhas describe the 29th, already determined, currently residing in what Buddhist cosmology calls Tusita heaven, awaiting the precise moment when conditions align for the next great Dharma revolution. His name is Maitreya, derived from the Sanskrit Maitri, meaning loving kindness, and his anticipated appearance represents the most intriguing aspect of the entire Buddha timeline. The Buddhavamsa and related texts describe Maitreya's current status with remarkable specificity. He resides in Tusita heaven, a celestial realm in Buddhist cosmology, where bodhisattvas dwell before their final rebirth, where he serves as a bodhisattva, teaching celestial beings while preparing for his final birth as a fully awakened Buddha. But Maitreya's timeline reveals fascinating conditions that must be fulfilled before his appearance. The Kakavati Sihanada Sutta states that human lifespans must increase to 80,000 years. The world must experience unprecedented peace and prosperity, and most significantly, Gautama's dharma must completely disappear from Earth. This creates a profound paradox. Maitreya won't appear to continue Buddhism as we understand it. He'll emerge to restart the entire Enlightenment cycle after current Buddhist teachings have been forgotten, bringing fresh dharma technologies for a renewed golden age. Different Buddhist traditions interpret Maitreya's timeline in varying ways. Theravada texts suggest his appearance in approximately 5.67 billion years, when our current cosmic cycle completes its decline and begins ascending. Mahayana sources sometimes suggest accelerated manifestation under certain karmic conditions. The Buddhavamsa, a Pali text specifically about Maitreya, describes the conditions of his future era. Humans will live for 80,000 years. Cities will be prosperous beyond imagination. Spiritual practice will be natural and joyful, and Maitreya's first teaching will awaken millions instantly. But what's particularly relevant for current practitioners is how various teachers throughout history have claimed to represent Maitreya's early manifestation. From Buddha in medieval China to modern spiritual movements claiming to prepare for his arrival, these phenomena raise intriguing questions about prophetic fulfillment in Buddhism. Are these early Maitreya claimants part of his gradual manifestation process? Or misunderstandings of how cosmic Buddha cycles actually function? The canonical texts suggest that true Buddha appearances follow precise cosmic timing that can't be artificially accelerated. What emerges clearly from traditional sources is that Maitreya's eventual appearance will mark a complete reset of the spiritual timeline, not continuation of current Buddhist practice, but an entirely new dharma dispensation for humanity's next evolutionary phase. As we covered in detail in our previous video about Buddhism's next Buddha, Maitreya's significance isn't just as a future teacher, but as living reminder that enlightenment operates on scales transcending individual lifetimes. But Maitreya's residence in Tusita heaven suggests something profound about enlightened consciousness. Awakened awareness is always present, always preparing, always ready to manifest when conditions align properly. While we practice with Gautama's methods, we're simultaneously participating in cosmic preparation for whatever dharma technologies will be needed in future eras. The 29th Buddha represents both completion and renewal, fulfillment of the current cosmic cycle and seed of the next, reminding us that enlightenment isn't historical accident, but cosmic necessity that manifests precisely when consciousness evolution requires its next revolutionary leap. Understanding Maitreya as the inevitable 29th Buddha transforms how we view current practice. We're not just working toward personal awakening. We're participating in a cosmic process connecting us to the wisdom of 28 previous Buddhas and the infinite potential of all Buddhas yet to manifest across future eons. This cosmic perspective suggests that every moment of mindfulness, every act of compassion, every breakthrough in understanding contributes to the consciousness substrate that will eventually support Maitreya's revolutionary teachings when the cosmic wheel turns once again toward its next golden age beginning. So what does this ancient chronicle of 28 Buddhas actually teach us about enlightenment? And why does understanding this cosmic timeline matter for anyone walking the spiritual path today? The Buddhavamsa reveals something profound. Enlightenment isn't random spiritual accident. It's cosmic necessity, a universal rhythm that manifests precisely when consciousness evolution requires its next breakthrough. Each Buddha appears exactly when their particular form of awakening becomes essential for continued spiritual development. This transforms how we understand our current practice. We're not struggling with meditation in isolation. We're participating in a cosmic process that has been unfolding for incalculable eons, using methods specifically designed by the 28th Buddha for exactly the consciousness challenges we still face. The timeline also illuminates something deeper about wisdom itself. Each Buddha builds upon accumulated insights from all predecessors, while simultaneously developing revolutionary approaches for their unique era. This creates spiral evolution, consciousness learning to manifest enlightenment under increasingly complex conditions. Picture what this means for your daily spiritual work. When you sit in meditation, practice mindfulness, cultivate compassion, you're engaging with distilled wisdom from 28 cosmic teachers, each contributing their understanding to methods available today. The declining lifespans from Dipankara's 100,000 years to Gautama's 80 years aren't evidence of spiritual decay. They demonstrate dharma adaptation, enlightenment becoming more concentrated, more accessible, more urgently practical for beings operating under challenging conditions. Most significantly, recognizing ourselves within this cosmic timeline transforms spiritual motivation. We are not just seeking personal peace, we're contributing to consciousness evolution that connects us to infinite past wisdom and infinite future potential. The practical takeaway is revolutionary. Every moment of awakening, however small, participates in the same cosmic process that produced 28 Buddhas and will eventually manifest the 29th. Your spiritual development matters on scales you can barely imagine. Understanding the 28 Buddha timeline reveals enlightenment as both deeply personal and utterly universal, both immediate breakthrough and cosmic necessity, both ancient wisdom and future evolution. Each awakening moment connecting us to a process that has been lighting lamps of consciousness since time immemorial. If this exploration of cosmic Buddha cycles has opened new perspectives on your spiritual journey, subscribe and hit notifications for more deep dives into canonical Buddhist texts most practitioners never encounter. Comment below which aspect of the 28 Buddha timeline most intrigues you: Dipankara's cosmic prophecy, the systematic dharma adaptation, or Maitreya's future promise. Your insights help shape our exploration of these profound teachings. Until next time, keep practicing with the understanding that you're using tools refined by 28 cosmic teachers, specifically for this challenging and opportunity-rich era. Every breakthrough lighting the way for countless beings yet to awaken.